Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm creating this video to share my experience of ground school at L3Harris during COVID-19. For those of you that don't know what ground school is the theoretical part of an airline transport pilot license where 14 ATPO exams are sat. So initially I passed the selection process for L3Harris back in November 2019, and I decided to take a break before I start the hectic, rigorous and challenging training to become a pilot. So I confirmed in January 2020 that I will start the integrated ATPL in April 2020 in Southampton by paying a deposit and accommodation fee upfront to secure my place at L3Harris. So I was patiently waiting to start, but little did I know that the coronavirus was around the corner and literally about to take over the whole world. So in March, when the coronavirus hit the UK and the national lockdown was put in place, I was uncertain whether or not my course would still go ahead. So I kept phoning L3 and asking them about the situation and whether or not the course would still go on. And on the 31st of March, just 1 week before my start date, I got a phone call from L3Harris saying, due to the situation of the coronavirus and government guidelines, my lessons won't be taking place in person at Southampton and they'll be conducted on Zoom instead. Now, this was the moment when I was really sad about the situation, as I'd waited so long to start my training and unfortunately it had not planned out the way I wanted it. The dream to start training in Southampton, meet new cadets, see teachers face to face and just have that whole ground school experience wasn't going to happen. So we were given the choice to either move to Southampton and have our Zoom lessons from our new accommodation that we had paid for, or stay at home and have Zoom lessons from the luxury of our bedrooms. Now I took the option to stay at home as I thought it would be a better option and safe during this unprecedented time. I had no idea if other cadets were going to go to Southampton and have the Zoom classes from their accommodation or stay at home. Now, before the start date, we were informed by L3Harris how the lessons will be conducted on Zoom and how everything will go ahead even in this disturbing time. I was scratching my head if having lessons over Zoom was going to be possible. Learning 14 ATPL subjects is hard enough, and to do it over Zoom is another huge challenge. We also had no idea how long we were going to remain on Zoom and if the L3 Southampton branch would open up during lockdown. So I was eagerly waiting for April the 6th to come and so that I could finally start ground school, and the day was finally here. So on April the 6th we had our first introduction day on Zoom, and I was really nervous and scared as I didn't know what to expect. So I joined the meeting and found out that there were 8 cadets including me on the course, and that was a fairly low number as people didn't want to start ground school during the pandemic. I found out that only 2 cadets were in Southampton and that the other 6, including me, were going to have lessons from home. Anyways, after a couple of days we started our subjects. So at L3 you have 3 modules. In module 1 you have meteorology, aircraft general knowledge and principles of flight. So from day 1 we hit the ground running, and I could see the intensity of work and how difficult some subjects/topics were. Now the day itself was very long. A normal day was from about 8 AM to 4 PM and we had 1 hour lunch break at 12 o'clock. So at the start, after a whole day's work, it was very tiring and we didn't know how to balance the workload and how much revision to do daily. But after a couple of weeks we were more into the routine and knew how to prioritize our work. Now to make it more difficult, Ramadan came and I was fasting for over 16 hours a day, and it was tough trying to balance everything. So out of the 3 subjects I found meteorology the most difficult as there was a lot of content to learn, and principles of flight was my favourite subject as it was based around planes itself and how they operate. So after about 8 weeks we had finished learning all the content and we were waiting to sit our exams as lockdown hadn't ended. So at the start of June we found out that our exams were going to take place on the last week of June and that L3 were going to open up the Southampton branch 2 weeks before exam so that we could receive face-to-face last-minute tutorial lessons to go over anything we didn't understand. So midway through June, the 6 remaining cadets, including me, we moved down to Southampton and into our new accommodation. Now this was the first time I saw all my cadet mates together, and it was nice to see them face-to-face rather than a little face cut-out on Zoom. So we had a week's worth of tutorials, but I was still nervous for the real exam as I didn't know what to expect, and it was also our first ever exam. Now normally when you're in ground school you can speak to courses ahead of you and find out how to prepare for these exams. However, we didn't have the luxury of meeting cadets in advance due to COVID-19. So on the 26th of June I sat my first exam, And after sitting the exam, I felt really good and I was feeling much better for the other two, as I knew the exam structure and what sort of questions to expect. So I sat the remaining exams after a couple of days and had to wait almost a week for results to come out. I don't think I've ever been that worried and anxious to finding out my results. So results came out and I passed all my exams and I was over the moon and I couldn't wait for Mod 2 to begin. So later on, just before we started Mod 2, we found out that the Southampton L3 branch was closing down and that we would start Module 2 at the new L3 London Training Centre, also known as LTC, in Gatwick. I was quite happy about this decision as I knew I was going to be closer to home. So we were the first class to start LTC, and LTC is a modern, state-of-the-art, brand new facility that is only a 5-minute drive from Gatwick Airport. Now L3 had their own accommodation, however my entire class opted to source our own accommodation as it suited us better. We moved into Platform, which is only a 5-minute drive from L3 and it's at the centre of the town. We were very happy with this accommodation and I would recommend it to anyone who's planning to start ground school with L3. So, Mod 2 started on the first week of July and there were 5 subjects: General Navigation, Mass and Balance, Performance, Human Performance Limitations and Instruments. We were told this module was the most difficult and General Navigation was probably the hardest exam out of the 14 ATBO exams. Now, the week that we had started at LTC, there was also another class that was starting their Mod 1s. It was great to meet other cadets and socialise with them and finally see teachers face to face and be in a classroom environment. As well as LTC being the home of the L3Harris Ground School, is also the facility where type rating takes place, and we had the luxury of meeting different pilots from different airlines and being able to see them and interact with them on a day-to-day basis and find out more about the aviation industry. So, Mod 2 went past in a blast, and by the end of August we had finished all the content. We had found that the exam room at LTC wasn't ready and that we would have to go to L3 Coventry to sit our exams there. So on the first week of September, we went to Coventry, we sat our 5 exams, and once we finished, we headed back down to Gatwick. The next very day, we got our results, and it was all good news. I couldn't believe, but I passed the most difficult module and had completed 8 exams in total, and that we were heading into our last module, and that we were 6 exams away from finishing ground school. We then found out that L3 Coventry was closing down due to COVID, and all the cadets from Coventry were moving to L3 LTC in Gatwick, and some were going to join us in our own class. Now, the very next week we had started Mod 3, and our class size had increased from 8 to 12 cadets. It was nice to meet and get along with these other cadets, and L3 had taken more courses and there were over 100 cadets at LTC at the same time. This was the moment when I felt like I was really in ground school. So in Mod 3 we had 6 subjects to sit. So flight planning, air law, operational procedures, radio navigation, IFR comms and VFR comms. Now Mod 3 was relatively easier than Mod 2 and only took 6 weeks to complete. It was at this moment where I realised that our ground school adventure was coming to an end and it had been a roller coaster right from day one. So we sat our exams at LTC mid-November and we couldn't believe it, but we had completed ground school finally and completed all 14 ATPL exams. All the hard work, countless hours of revision, practicing questions on exam banks, perseverance and determination had paid off. The last 8 months flew by, no pun intended. My L3Harris experience for ground school was unique to say the least and very challenging due to the pandemic. The instructors at L3Harris are absolutely amazing. They're very professional, polite, knowledgeable and have years of experience. If there is anything you are struggling with, you could always approach them at any time, even out of hours, as they're more than happy to help. Even though it's been a hectic ground school journey, I've had the time of my life at L3Harris. It's been an amazing adventure from the get-go, and for anyone starting their piloting career, I would definitely recommend starting at L3. I think the London Training Centre also plays a big role in motivation and hungerness in order to become a pilot. It's an amazing facility where you can learn and use the facilities and classrooms and even use them out of hours to revise. I just want to say a big thank you to my parents, friends and family for always supporting me in the difficult times and always motivating me however possible. Also my course mates. I think I've made friends for life. I will never forget these precious moments I've had with my course mates, from starting on Zoom and hardly knowing each other to sharing every single moment with them at LTC. I don't think it would have been possible for me to pass all 14 of my ATPO exams without them. I just wanted to thank Freddie, Joe, Vinay, Jamie, Dean, Sultan, Laith, Rachel, Marcus, Joe, Cameron and Joe Collins for making my time at L3Harris an amazing experience. I'm off to Portugal in the next couple of months to start my flying stage of being a pilot. I just want to end this video by saying thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you like this video and look forward to sharing more content with you guys from Portugal. Please like, share, subscribe, and once again, thank you for watching.